The sun had barely risen over the city when Marcus Jefferson laced up his worn-out shoes and prepared for another long day. The small apartment he shared with his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, smelled faintly of cereal and fresh laundry. The morning light slanted through the dusty curtains, painting golden stripes across the floor. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and looked at Lily sleeping peacefully in her little bed. Even after all these years, he never got used to the quiet moments before the day began. The moments when the world seemed calm and safe, a sharp contrast to the chaos he knew awaited them outside. Lily stirred and yawned, stretching her small arms toward the ceiling. Her brown eyes blinked sleepily as she looked at her father. "Morning, Daddy," she whispered softly. Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that carried both love and worry. "Morning, Pumpkin," he said gently, lifting her from the bed and wrapping her in a warm hug. "Time to get ready. We don't want to be late for school." Lily reluctantly climbed into her chair at the tiny kitchen table, and Marcus poured her a bowl of cereal. The small apartment was neat but modest. A few framed pictures of Marcus, Lily, and her late mother lined the shelves. Their life was simple, but it was theirs, and Marcus had worked hard to make it as comfortable as possible. He glanced at the clock. Already 7:15. School would start in 45 minutes, and the city streets were already filling with the usual morning rush. Marcus grabbed Lily's backpack and helped her put on her little coat. She was still sleepy, her hair tangled from sleep. Marcus ruffled it with a soft laugh. "Come on, let's get going," he said, picking up Lily's hand. As they stepped outside, the crisp morning air hit them, and Marcus felt a twinge of nervous energy. Every day felt like a challenge, balancing work life and raising Lily alone. But he wouldn't trade it for anything. The streets were alive with the sounds of the city. Cars honking, bicycles ringing their bells, and people hurrying to work. Marcus held Lily close, guiding her through the crowd. They had to cross several busy intersections to reach her school. As they approached the school gate, Marcus noticed something unusual. A sleek black car had stopped near the sidewalk. Its engine hummed softly, and the tinted windows reflected the sunlight. Marcus felt an uneasy knot form in his stomach. Something about the car didn't feel right. He noticed the driver, a man in a sharp suit, sitting inside, glancing around nervously. Marcus's protective instincts kicked in instantly. "Don't get in the car," Marcus shouted, his voice loud and urgent. Lily froze in her tracks. The driver's eyes widened in surprise, and he quickly glanced at Marcus before rolling the car window up and driving away. Lily clutched her father's hand tightly. "Daddy, what was that?" she asked, her voice trembling. Marcus knelt down to her level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's okay, baby," he said softly. "Just some stranger trying to do something that wasn't right. You listened to me, and that's what matters." Lily nodded, but her eyes were wide with curiosity and fear. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and tension. The morning had started like any other, but this moment reminded him just how unpredictable life could be. By the time they reached the school gate, other parents were guiding their children inside, and teachers were waving from the entrance. Marcus walked Lily to her classroom door, kneeling to give her a quick hug and a kiss on the forehead. "Have a great day, sweetheart," he said. "Remember to be kind and helpful to your friends." "I will, Daddy," Lily replied, her fear slowly replaced by her usual bright smile. As Lily entered the classroom, Marcus watched her go, his heart swelling with both pride and worry. He had promised himself that he would always protect her, no matter what. Every decision he made, every sacrifice was for her. Once Lily was safely inside, Marcus turned and walked toward the bus stop. His work as a janitor at a tall corporate building awaited him. It wasn't glamorous and it wasn't easy, but it paid the bills and allowed him to provide for Lily. He often thought about the irony. He spent his days cleaning the spaces where people worked in luxury and comfort, while he and his daughter lived a modest life. Still, he never complained. The streets of the city were bustling now. Morning traffic had grown heavy, and the air was filled with the smell of exhaust mixed with the faint scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. Marcus walked with steady steps, careful not to slip on the uneven pavement. He thought about the black car again. Who could it have been? And why had he felt such a strong urge to yell? The questions lingered in his mind, but he pushed them aside. There wasn't time to dwell. He had work to do. By the time he reached the office building, Marcus was already tired. The uniform he wore, a simple blue shirt and black pants, felt heavy after a morning of running and worrying. He swiped his ID card and entered the lobby. The building was quiet, except for the hum of air conditioning and the occasional clatter of cleaning carts in the distance. Marcus started his usual routine, sweeping the floor, wiping down counters, and emptying trash bins. Even though his job was physically demanding, Marcus found a kind of peace in it. There was a rhythm to the work, a sense of order that contrasted with the unpredictability of his life outside these walls. He moved with quiet efficiency, careful not to disturb the few employees already arriving for the day. As he worked, his thoughts drifted back to Lily. He wondered what she was doing at that very moment. Was she drawing at her desk? Playing with her friends? The thought made him smile. Despite the challenges, her happiness was his guiding light. Around mid-morning, Marcus took a short break and sat by a window overlooking the city. The view was beautiful. The sun now high in the sky casting light on the tall buildings, the streets filled with people hustling and bustling. Marcus sipped his water, feeling a moment of calm. Yet beneath the surface there was always that lingering tension. Life had taught him to expect the unexpected. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a familiar sight. The same black car from that morning, parked near the building entrance. His heart raced. Could it be the same person? Marcus stood up alert and approached cautiously, but the car drove away before he could get a closer look. Shaking his head, Marcus returned to his work. He couldn't afford to worry too much. He had responsibilities, a life to maintain, and a daughter who depended on him. Still, he couldn't help but feel that the events of the morning were only the beginning of something bigger. By noon, the lobby was filled with employees coming and going. Marcus continued his work, moving among the desks and hallways, quietly cleaning, quietly observing. People rarely noticed him unless they needed something or the floor was wet. Yet Marcus didn't mind. He didn't work for recognition. He worked to provide, to protect, and to survive. As the day wore on, Marcus thought about how much life had changed since he became a single father. The days of carefree living were gone, replaced by endless responsibilities, sleepless nights, and constant vigilance. But every challenge had strengthened him. Every obstacle had taught him resilience. He was determined to be the kind of father Lily could be proud of, the kind of man who would never back down when it mattered most. By the time the clock struck 5, Marcus was exhausted but satisfied. He had done his job well, and more importantly, he had survived another day keeping his daughter safe. As he left the building, he glanced back at the towering structure, a symbol of ambition and wealth that seemed so far removed from his own modest life. And yet he knew that life had its ways of connecting people in unexpected moments, moments that could change everything. With Lily waiting for him at home, Marcus took a deep breath and headed out into the streets once more, ready to face whatever surprises the city had in store. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. He would always protect his daughter no matter the cost. Richard Caldwell, the CEO of Caldwell Enterprises, rarely noticed the small details of everyday life. His office was a world of polished glass, high-tech gadgets, and endless meetings, far removed from the streets and lives outside. But that morning, as he walked past the lobby of his company, something caught his eye. Marcus Jefferson was there, pushing a cleaning cart with quiet determination. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, his shoes scuffed, yet there was a calmness about him that drew Richard's attention. He had seen the janitor many times before, of course. Marcus was always present, always working, always moving like a quiet, steady current beneath the surface of the company's polished exterior. Yet today there was something different. Richard paused and observed from the glass walls of the lobby. He noticed the care with which Marcus moved, how he navigated the crowd, how he even took a moment to straighten a picture frame that had been slightly crooked on the wall. There was pride in his work, not the kind of pride that demanded recognition, but the kind that came from doing one's best, no matter who noticed. Richard had always prided himself on running a company that cared about its employees. They had benefits, training programs, and incentives, but the truth was he had spent so much time thinking about policies and profits that he rarely thought about the individuals behind them. Marcus Jefferson, the quiet janitor, had reminded him that people's stories existed beyond the spreadsheets and boardrooms. Later that morning, Richard's thoughts returned to the incident outside the school. He had not seen it happen, of course, but a colleague mentioned seeing Marcus act protectively toward a child, shouting at a car in a way that made other parents turn and stare. Something about that story lingered in Richard's mind. There was courage there and perhaps even love, a raw, real kind of bravery that he hadn't seen in the office in a long time. During his lunch break, Richard found himself wandering toward the employee break room, a place he rarely entered. He wanted to see the janitor for himself, to understand the man who had captured his attention. The break room was small and quiet, filled with mismatched chairs and tables. Marcus sat at a corner table eating a simple sandwich, his uniform a little dusty from work. "Mind if I join you?" Richard asked, surprising Marcus. Marcus looked up, startled, then nodded politely. "Of course, sir," he said. Richard sat down across from him, observing quietly for a moment. "I've seen you around the building for years," he began. "I've always noticed how carefully you do your work. You seem different from most people I see here." Marcus shrugged modestly. "Just doing my job, sir. Trying to keep things clean, that's all." Richard smiled. "It's more than that. You handle yourself with a kind of care and attention that's rare. And I hear you've been very protective of someone recently. A child, I believe?" Marcus froze for a moment, unsure how much to reveal. Then he nodded slowly. "My daughter," he said quietly. "I try to keep her safe." "That's my job too, I guess." Richard leaned back, his curiosity growing. "You do more than your job, Marcus. There's a kind of quiet heroism in what you do. Most people wouldn't notice. Most people wouldn't care. But I do." Marcus felt a strange warmth in his chest. He was not used to praise from someone like Richard Caldwell. Most people passed him by without a second glance, seeing only a janitor, not a person with responsibilities, fears, or courage. They talked for a few more minutes. Marcus shared small details of his life, his routine, his work ethic, the love he had for Lily. He didn't go into hardships or struggles. He simply spoke of his daily life, the rhythm of caring for his daughter and the quiet dignity of hard work. Richard listened intently, realizing that this man's life, so far removed from his own, held lessons about resilience, love, and responsibility that could not be found in any book or seminar. By the end of lunch, Richard felt a strange sense of admiration. Marcus was ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in the things that mattered most. He handled life's unpredictability with grace. He protected what mattered most, his daughter, with unwavering courage. And he did it without expecting anyone to notice. Over the next few days, Richard watched Marcus more closely. He observed how Marcus greeted employees with quiet politeness, how he navigated the crowded hallways with care, and how he approached every task, no matter how small, with a dedication that seemed almost sacred. The CEO began to understand that the heart of the company was not just the executives, the managers, or the employees with impressive titles. It was people like Marcus, whose unseen work held the entire building together. One afternoon, Richard witnessed a moment that would stay with him forever. Marcus noticed a young boy trip near the lobby fountain. Without hesitation, Marcus was there, steadying the child and helping him to his feet. The boy's parents rushed over, grateful but oblivious to the quiet heroism Marcus had shown. Richard, watching from his office window, felt a deep respect for the janitor. It wasn't just about cleaning floors or emptying trash bins. Marcus Jefferson was a man who noticed the small things, who cared about others, and who acted when it mattered. Richard realized that Marcus's heroism was not loud or demanding. It was quiet, consistent, and sincere. The CEO began to reflect on his own life. He had achieved wealth, status, and influence. Yet how many moments of true care and courage had he witnessed? How many acts of genuine bravery had he seen? Beyond the surface of business and appearances, Marcus, in his humility and dedication, reminded Richard that true strength often went unnoticed, that the most meaningful lives were sometimes the ones that did not seek attention or reward. By the end of the week, Richard decided he wanted to know more about Marcus's story. He invited him to a brief meeting in his office, not for praise, not for reward, but simply to listen. Marcus, unsure of what to expect, agreed. As he entered the sleek office on the 22nd floor, Marcus felt a mixture of nervousness and pride. This was not his world. The shiny floors, the glass walls, the artfully arranged furniture, all of it was foreign, almost intimidating. But he reminded himself that he belonged here just as much as anyone else. He was a man who worked hard, who protected his child, and who faced life's challenges with courage. Richard greeted him warmly and gestured to a chair. "Marcus, thank you for coming," he said. "I wanted to hear about your life, your work, and how you manage everything with such dedication." Marcus sat down, hands clasped nervously. He began to speak about Lily, about the challenges of being a single father, about the long hours at work, and the small victories that made it all worthwhile. He spoke honestly, without exaggeration, without complaint. Richard listened, captivated. There was something about Marcus's story that touched him deeply. It was not just the difficulties he faced, but the unwavering love and responsibility he carried. It reminded Richard that life's true value was measured not in money or status, but in care, courage, and connection. As the conversation ended, Richard felt inspired. He wanted the company and the people in it to understand the lessons that Marcus embodied: resilience in the face of challenge, selfless dedication to loved ones, and quiet bravery that changed lives without recognition. Walking back to his office window, Richard watched Marcus return to his duties, sweeping the lobby with the same meticulous care as always. He realized that the company had overlooked its true heart for years. Marcus Jefferson was more than a janitor. He was a living example of the values that truly mattered, a man whose courage and love had gone unnoticed, yet whose actions were profoundly important. Richard decided then that something had to change. He would find a way to recognize not just the visible achievements of the executives, but the quiet, extraordinary efforts of employees like Marcus. He would make sure that the company saw, valued, and celebrated those who carried life's burdens with dignity and courage. And most importantly, he wanted to understand Marcus's story fully, to know the man who had acted without hesitation to protect his daughter, whose quiet strength had inspired him, and whose daily acts of care had begun to transform the way he viewed the world. That evening, as Marcus left the building tired but proud, Richard watched him from his office window, feeling a profound sense of respect. The city was busy, noisy, and indifferent to most, but in that moment, Richard understood that heroes could be found in the most unexpected places, people who acted out of love, not for recognition, and who carried life's weight with unwavering strength. And he knew, without a doubt, that Marcus Jefferson was one of those heroes. The next morning, Marcus Jefferson woke before dawn, as he did every day. The city outside his window was just beginning to stir. Streetlights still flickered in the early mist, and the distant hum of traffic reminded him that life never truly paused. Marcus quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake Lily, who was still deep in sleep. He brewed a pot of coffee and prepared breakfast, the aroma filling their modest apartment. Today felt different, though he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was because of the brief conversation he had with Richard Caldwell in the past week. Marcus had returned to his work, not expecting recognition or reward, but he couldn't deny that a spark of curiosity had been lit. The CEO of the company had actually taken the time to listen to him, and that in itself was extraordinary. Lily eventually stirred, rubbing her eyes and yawning. Marcus helped her get ready for school as he did every day, and they shared a quiet breakfast together. The morning routine, though repetitive, was filled with small joys. Marcus watched Lily carefully, noting the excitement in her eyes as she talked about her friends, her schoolwork, and the little adventures of her day-to-day life. By 7:15 a.m., they left the apartment and walked to the school. Marcus's watchful eyes scanned the streets, alert for anything unusual. The memory of the black car from days ago still lingered in his mind. Today, however, the city seemed quieter, the morning more peaceful. Lily skipped alongside him, her laughter blending with the hum of the waking city. When they reached the school, Marcus knelt to give Lily a hug. "Remember what we talked about, Pumpkin? Be careful and always trust your instincts." "I will, Daddy," Lily replied, smiling. After dropping Lily off, Marcus walked toward the office building, his mind already shifting to the day's work. As a janitor, he faced tasks that could be physically demanding and mentally tiring, but he took pride in his work. The building itself was enormous, filled with bustling employees, sleek offices, and the constant hum of modern technology. Marcus navigated the hallways carefully, balancing efficiency with discretion. That morning, a commotion erupted in the lobby. A corporate event was scheduled for the afternoon, and the team in charge had underestimated the preparation required. Decorations had been delayed, chairs were scattered, and papers littered the floor. Marcus paused for a moment, surveying the scene. Without hesitation, he rolled up his sleeves and began coordinating the cleanup. He didn't wait for instructions. He moved with quiet authority, directing employees to help tidy up, straighten chairs, and arrange decorations. Though he was the janitor, today he became the orchestrator of the lobby's transformation. Richard Caldwell, observing from his office window, noticed Marcus's natural leadership. The CEO had seen efficiency and dedication before, but there was something different about the way Marcus worked. He did not seek recognition or praise. He simply acted because it needed to be done. Richard leaned forward, impressed. Marcus moved among the employees, gently instructing them without speaking harshly or raising his voice. "The tables need to be aligned with the entrance," he said to one, and to another. "The centerpieces go in the middle of the tables, not the sides." People followed his guidance, surprised at the quiet confidence he carried. As the preparations continued, Marcus noticed one employee struggling with a large box of decorations. Without thinking, he stepped in and helped carry it. "Thanks," the employee said breathlessly. Marcus smiled. "No problem. We're all in this together." Hours passed quickly. Marcus's energy never seemed to waver, though his muscles ached from bending, lifting, and arranging. He moved efficiently, cleaning spills, adjusting lights, and ensuring every detail was perfect. By noon, the lobby had transformed completely. It looked polished, professional, and inviting, ready to impress the guests arriving for the event. Richard finally descended from his office, curious to see the results firsthand. As he entered the lobby, he noticed the subtle changes Marcus had made. The alignment of the chairs, the cleanliness of the floors, the careful placement of decorations. He walked over to Marcus, who was wiping down a counter, and observed quietly. "You did this?" Richard asked, incredulous. Marcus looked up, slightly embarrassed. "Yes, sir. Just trying to make sure everything is ready." Richard extended his hand. "Marcus, you've done an incredible job. This isn't just cleaning. This is leadership, initiative, and care." "Thank you." Marcus shook his hand, surprised but grateful. "Thank you, sir. I just want everything to be right for everyone." Richard's eyes softened. "You've got something special, Marcus. Something rare. Most people would never notice what you've done, but I do." Marcus returned to his duties, modest and quiet, as the lobby began to fill with guests. Employees whispered among themselves, impressed by the janitor who had saved the day. Some nodded respectfully as they passed him. Marcus, however, remained focused, not letting pride distract him from his work. As the afternoon progressed, Marcus's thoughts drifted to Lily. He thought about how much he wanted to give her a stable and happy life, one filled with love and opportunities, even if it meant sacrificing his own comfort. He thought about the sacrifices he had made since losing his wife, the endless nights of work, the constant vigilance to protect his daughter. And he felt a quiet pride in the life he had built for her. Meanwhile, Richard observed Marcus from across the room. The CEO had seen many employees in his career, but few had the humility, determination, and quiet courage that Marcus possessed. He realized that this janitor, who had once seemed ordinary, was in fact extraordinary. Marcus had a rare ability to care deeply, act decisively, and inspire others without demanding attention. Richard knew he had to do more than just observe. He wanted the company to recognize Marcus's contributions, to understand that the foundation of any great organization was not only in its leaders, but also in the quiet strength of its employees. Marcus's dedication had turned a chaotic morning into a successful event, and in doing so, he had shown the true meaning of responsibility and integrity. Later that day, as the event concluded successfully, Richard approached Marcus again. "You've done more than anyone could have expected," he said. "Your work today wasn't just cleaning or arranging things, it was leadership. You stepped up when it mattered most. I want you to know that I notice and I appreciate it." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't used to recognition, especially from someone as important as the CEO. "Thank you, sir," he said quietly. "I just did what needed to be done." Richard smiled. "And that's exactly why it matters. People like you don't just complete tasks, they make a difference." The words stayed with Marcus long after the guests had left and the lobby had emptied. He continued his work, but now there was a lightness in his step, a sense of validation that went beyond money or titles. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly seen, not just as a worker, but as a person with values, dedication, and courage. As he finished his shift and walked home that evening, Marcus reflected on the events of the day. The black car, the protective instinct with Lily, and the recognition from Richard, all of it formed a pattern, a series of moments that reminded him that life was full of surprises. He realized that sometimes small acts of courage and care could create ripples far beyond what one could imagine. Back at home, Lily greeted him with a wide smile. "Daddy, today I painted a picture of a superhero," she said, holding up her drawing. Marcus knelt to examine it and laughed softly. The picture showed a figure with a cape, protecting a smaller figure. He realized it was her way of showing him as the hero in her life. "You're my hero too, Lily," he said, hugging her tightly. "And you're mine." That night, Marcus sat by the window looking out at the city lights. He thought about the morning chaos, the busy lobby, and the events that had unfolded. He realized that heroism was not about recognition or awards. It was about action, care, and love. In quiet moments, in simple acts, in the protection of those who mattered most, true courage revealed itself. And somewhere above the city, Richard Caldwell looked down at the streets below, reflecting on the janitor who had taught him more about life, responsibility, and humanity than any executive seminar ever could. He knew that Marcus Jefferson's story was just beginning, and that the ripples of his courage would continue to inspire change, both within the company and beyond. For Marcus, the day ended as it always did, with exhaustion but also with satisfaction. He had faced challenges, protected his daughter, and made a difference in ways that most would never see. And as he drifted to sleep, he felt a quiet hope that tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new challenges, and perhaps new recognition for the quiet heroism that defined his life. The city had settled into its usual rhythm as the week began. Morning light spilled over the streets, illuminating the familiar sounds of traffic, bicycle bells, and hurried footsteps. Marcus Jefferson, like every other day, was awake before sunrise. He brewed a pot of coffee, prepared breakfast, and got Lily ready for school. The routine was predictable yet comforting. It reminded Marcus that despite life's uncertainties, some things could still be controlled. Today, however, Marcus felt a shift in the air. It was subtle at first, a quiet hum of anticipation, a small energy that seemed to whisper that something important was about to happen. Perhaps it was because of the past week, when he had noticed Richard Caldwell, the CEO of the company where he worked as a janitor, observing him with interest. Marcus hadn't understood why someone so high in the corporate world would notice him. He had spent years invisible to most, simply doing his work, simply protecting Lily, simply surviving. As they walked to school, Lily chattered excitedly about her day ahead. Marcus smiled, listening carefully, his eyes scanning the streets for any signs of danger. The memory of the black car from weeks ago still lingered in his mind. He shook it off. There was no sign of it today. Lily safely entered her classroom, waving to him with a bright smile. Marcus waved back, but his thoughts were elsewhere. By the time he arrived at Caldwell Enterprises, the lobby was bustling. Marcus began his usual duties, sweeping the floor, wiping counters, and emptying trash bins. Yet today felt different. He had a subtle awareness that his work, usually unnoticed, might carry greater significance. Richard Caldwell had made a point to observe Marcus more closely in recent days. He had noticed the janitor's care for every detail, his calm efficiency, and the quiet way he inspired cooperation among employees. Marcus was not a manager, yet he demonstrated leadership through action, not words. Richard realized that Marcus's influence was far greater than anyone had given him credit for. That morning, a new situation arose that would put Marcus's skills and courage to the test. A young boy, visiting the company with his mother for a guided tour, wandered too close to the entrance of the lobby doors as they opened automatically. Marcus noticed immediately. Without hesitation, he moved forward and gently pulled the child back to safety. The mother, startled, thanked him profusely, but Marcus only smiled. "Just doing my job," he said softly. Richard, witnessing the scene from his office, felt a deeper respect for Marcus. This was not a man who sought recognition, nor did he act for personal gain. His care was instinctive, genuine, and profound. It was a lesson in humanity that Richard had rarely encountered in his life of boardrooms and business strategy. Later that day, Richard invited Marcus to his office once again. Marcus hesitated briefly at the thought of entering the sleek, intimidating space, but he knew he could not refuse. The CEO had shown a genuine interest in understanding him, and Marcus felt a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism. "Marcus," Richard began warmly, "I've been observing you for some time now, and I need to know more about your life. You have a way of approaching challenges, protecting those around you, and inspiring people quietly. I want to understand how you do it." Marcus shifted in his seat, feeling a combination of pride and vulnerability. He had never spoken so openly about his life. Yet something about Richard's tone encouraged honesty. "It's not easy, sir," Marcus said. "Being a single father, raising a child alone, it takes every bit of strength you have. But I do it because I love her, because she's my world. Everything I do for Lily." Richard leaned forward, listening intently. "Tell me more," he encouraged. "About Lily, about your routines, about the sacrifices you make." Marcus took a deep breath. He spoke about losing his wife years ago, about the nights he spent crying silently so Lily wouldn't hear, about the jobs he took to ensure she had food, clothing, and a safe home. He spoke about the constant vigilance required to navigate the city streets with a young child, about the joy of watching her grow, learn, and thrive. His voice trembled slightly at times, but he continued, knowing that Richard was listening, truly listening. Richard was struck by the depth of Marcus's dedication. Here was a man living a life of quiet heroism, facing challenges that most could never imagine, yet doing so with humility and love. Richard realized that Marcus's actions, the protective instinct with Lily, the leadership in the lobby, the small acts of kindness, were all part of a larger story of resilience, courage, and devotion. For Richard, it was a revelation. He had built a life of success measured in profits, awards, and influence. But he realized that the most meaningful strength was not in power or status. It was in the capacity to care, to protect, and to persevere in the face of hardship. Marcus embodied that strength. The conversation continued for nearly an hour. Marcus spoke of the small victories, like helping a student at Lily's school with homework, or ensuring the lobby was always safe and welcoming for visitors. He spoke of the quiet pride he took in his work, even when no one noticed, and the deep satisfaction he felt in knowing that Lily's life was stable and filled with love. Richard, moved by the honesty and courage in Marcus's words, felt a desire to act. He wanted to ensure that someone who gave so much without seeking recognition was acknowledged, valued, and supported. Yet he also realized that Marcus did not want charity or sympathy. He wanted respect, understanding, and the chance to continue living his life with dignity. Over the next few days, Richard observed Marcus even more closely. He noticed how employees responded to Marcus's quiet guidance, how children in the lobby gravitated toward him, and how Marcus handled every situation with patience and care. Marcus was more than a janitor. He was a mentor, a protector, and a leader in his own right. One afternoon, a minor accident occurred in the lobby. A flower vase had been knocked over, spilling water across the polished floor. A young intern slipped and nearly fell. Marcus was there instantly, steadying the intern and cleaning up the spill efficiently. The intern looked up at him with awe, whispering a thank you. Marcus simply nodded and continued his work, unassuming yet heroic in his actions. Richard, witnessing this from his office window, felt a profound respect. He realized that Marcus's life, though unseen by most, was filled with acts of courage, care, and integrity. He began to understand that true heroism often went unnoticed, not because it was unimportant, but because it did not seek attention. Marcus's story was a testament to the strength of quiet dedication, the power of love, and the resilience of the human spirit. That evening, as Marcus walked home, he thought about the week's events. The recognition from Richard, the small victories at work, the protective instincts with Lily, it all formed a pattern. He realized that life's challenges were not just obstacles to overcome, but opportunities to show courage, care, and humanity. And in those moments, he discovered a quiet joy that made the hardships worthwhile. When he arrived home, Lily ran to greet him, holding her latest school project. "Daddy, look, I made a card for you," she exclaimed. Marcus knelt down, examining the card carefully. It was simple but filled with love, a drawing of a father and daughter holding hands, smiling under the sun. Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. "Thank you, baby," he whispered. This means the world to me." That night, Marcus sat by the window looking out at the city lights. He reflected on his life, the sacrifices, the hard work, the love, and the small moments of triumph. He realized that heroism was not about recognition or awards, but about the quiet acts of care that defined his daily life. Meanwhile, Richard Caldwell reviewed the events he had observed over the past week. He understood that Marcus Jefferson's story was not just inspiring, it was transformative. Marcus had reminded him that the heart of any community, any company, any society was not its leaders or its wealth, but the people who acted with courage, care, and integrity every day. Richard made a decision that night. He would find a way to ensure that Marcus was recognized, supported, and valued, not just as a janitor, but as the extraordinary human being he truly was. He understood that Marcus's story was a powerful reminder that courage, love, and resilience could be found in the most unexpected places, and that the impact of small, quiet acts could ripple far beyond anyone's imagination. As the city slept, Marcus rested in his modest apartment, unaware that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. For the first time, he felt a quiet hope that his dedication, his sacrifices, and his love for Lily might be seen, appreciated, and celebrated not for fame or reward, but because he had truly earned it through his unwavering courage and humanity. And somewhere above the city, Richard Caldwell prepared to take action, inspired by the janitor who had unknowingly taught him the true meaning of strength, responsibility, and heart. Marcus' story was no longer invisible. It was about to become a beacon for others, a testament to the power of quiet heroism in a world that often overlooked it. The morning sunlight poured into the small apartment where Marcus Jefferson lived with his daughter, Lily. Birds chirped outside the window, and the city streets slowly came alive with the familiar hum of traffic. Marcus, as always, woke before dawn, preparing breakfast and helping Lily get ready for school. The routine was comforting, a reminder that even amid life's challenges, some things remained steady. But today there was a subtle difference in the air, a sense of anticipation that Marcus could not yet name. He had noticed it in small ways, the way the neighbors greeted him with slightly warmer smiles, the way his colleagues at work had seemed unusually attentive in the past few days, and of course the quiet, thoughtful glances from Richard Caldwell, the CEO of the company where he worked. As Marcus walked Lily to school, he held her hand tightly, keeping an eye out for anything unusual. The memory of the black car from weeks ago lingered in his mind, but he pushed it aside. Today nothing seemed dangerous, only the usual bustle of parents, children, and commuters. Lily skipped along happily, chatting about her friends and her schoolwork, unaware of the quiet excitement building in her father's heart. After dropping Lily off, Marcus continued to the office building. The lobby was alive with the morning rush. Marcus began his duties, sweeping floors, wiping counters, and ensuring every corner of the building was clean and welcoming. Yet today he worked with a new sense of focus. There was something in the air, a feeling that the routine tasks he performed daily might have a greater significance than ever before. By mid-morning, Richard Caldwell was waiting. He had asked Marcus to meet him in the CEO's office, an invitation that surprised the janitor. Marcus had grown accustomed to keeping a low profile. Recognition from the CEO was rare, almost unimaginable. Still, he trusted Richard's intentions and entered the office with cautious curiosity. "Marcus," Richard began warmly, "thank you for coming. I've been observing you for some time, and I want to make sure the company acknowledges what you do. Your dedication, your courage, and your care are extraordinary. I want to talk about how we can support you and recognize your efforts." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He had spent years quietly doing his job, never expecting recognition, never asking for reward. Yet here was the CEO, acknowledging the life he lived, the love he carried for his daughter, and the quiet heroism that defined his every day. I don't know what to say," Marcus stammered, humbled and touched. "I'm just trying to do my best, sir. For Lily, for everyone I work with. That's all," Richard smiled. "And that is exactly why it matters. The company can offer awards and promotions, but those things mean little if they are not earned through genuine effort and integrity. You've earned recognition, Marcus, not because you sought it, but because you've demonstrated what true dedication looks like." Over the next few hours, they discussed ways to highlight Marcus's contributions within the company. Richard proposed a new initiative to support employees facing personal hardships, inspired directly by Marcus's story. He spoke of mentorship programs, childcare assistance, and recognition for unsung heroes, people whose dedication often went unnoticed but whose efforts were essential to the company's success. Marcus listened quietly, absorbing each word. He was not looking for charity or sympathy. He wanted respect, understanding, and a chance to continue providing for his daughter in a meaningful and stable way. Richard's proposals offered all of that, and more. By afternoon, Marcus returned to his regular duties, but he felt a change within himself. He moved with renewed purpose, cleaning the lobby and interacting with employees and visitors alike. The subtle confidence he carried was noticed by those around him. For once, his work was not invisible. For once, people saw not just the janitor, but the man, dedicated, courageous, and inspiring. Later that day, Richard gathered the company staff in the lobby for an announcement. Employees were curious, murmuring among themselves as the CEO stepped forward. "Today," Richard began, "I want to recognize someone who has shown extraordinary dedication, courage, and care, not just for this company, but for the people who matter most in their life. Marcus Jefferson, our janitor, is a true example of quiet heroism. His work, his values, and his commitment to his daughter remind us all what real strength looks like." A hush fell over the room. Marcus stood frozen, unsure how to respond. He had never expected anything like this. Employees looked at him with newfound admiration, many nodding respectfully. Some whispered in awe about how Marcus had quietly held the building together, not seeking attention or reward. Richard continued, "Marcus has inspired a new initiative in our company. Programs to support employees facing challenges, mentorship opportunities, and recognition for acts of courage and care. Marcus's story shows us that true leadership is not about titles or status. It is about action, responsibility, and love." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. He had spent years working silently, never imagining that anyone would notice. Now his life, his dedication, and his sacrifices were being celebrated, not for fame, but for their true value. After the announcement, employees approached Marcus, congratulating him and expressing gratitude. Some shared personal stories of challenges they had faced, inspired by Marcus's perseverance. Marcus responded humbly, thanking them, but always redirecting attention to teamwork, kindness, and the importance of care. That evening, Marcus walked home, exhausted but fulfilled. Lily ran to meet him at the door holding a handmade card. "Daddy, the whole class drew pictures of heroes today, and I made one for you," she exclaimed. Marcus knelt, taking the card gently. It was a simple drawing of a father and daughter holding hands, smiling under the sun. "You're my hero too, Lily," Marcus whispered, hugging her tightly. "And you're mine." For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt the weight of his sacrifices balanced by recognition and gratitude. He had worked tirelessly, protected his daughter, and led quietly by example. Now, he saw that his actions had created ripples far beyond what he had imagined. Meanwhile, Richard Caldwell reflected on the day's events. He understood that the heart of any organization, or any society, was not in its leaders but in the people who acted with courage, care, and integrity every day. Marcus Jefferson had reminded him of that truth. The CEO knew that Marcus's story would inspire change, not just in the company, but in the lives of everyone who heard it. In the following weeks, Marcus's life slowly began to change. The company offered him a supervisory role, providing greater stability and recognition, though Marcus approached it with the same humility as before. He continued to care for the building, mentor employees, and protect Lily, but now he did so with support, understanding, and respect from those around him. Lily noticed the difference as well. She saw her father smiling more, carrying himself with quiet confidence, and she felt proud. One evening, as they sat together drawing pictures, she looked up at him. "Daddy, you're the bravest man I know," she said softly. Marcus hugged her, feeling a warmth that no promotion or recognition could ever replace. Months passed, and the ripple effect of Marcus's courage and care continued. The mentorship programs, childcare initiatives, and recognition awards inspired by his story flourished. Employees felt more connected, more valued, and more motivated to act with integrity and kindness. The company thrived not just because of its leadership, but because it had learned to value the quiet heroes who often went unseen. Marcus, though now recognized, remained the same humble man he had always been. He continued to protect Lily, work diligently, and approach every challenge with care and courage. Yet he also felt a sense of hope, a belief that his efforts, his sacrifices, and his love for his daughter mattered beyond the walls of his apartment and the hallways of the office. One evening, as Marcus tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, I'm so glad you're my hero." Marcus smiled, feeling tears prick at his eyes. "And I'm glad you're mine, baby," he whispered back. He kissed her forehead and watched her drift into sleep, peaceful and safe. As he sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the morning chaos with the black car to the quiet recognition by Richard Caldwell, every moment had taught him about courage, love, and resilience. He realized that heroism was not about accolades or fame, it was about action, care, and the willingness to face life's challenges with integrity. Richard Caldwell, meanwhile, continued to observe and support Marcus. He knew that the company had been transformed by the lessons Marcus embodied, that true strength is quiet, that acts of care matter, and that love can inspire courage in the most ordinary lives. In the heart of the city, Marcus Jefferson's story had become a beacon of hope. It was a reminder that even the quietest voices, the ones who act without seeking attention, can inspire change, create ripples, and touch the lives of countless others. And in that story, one simple truth shone brightly. Love, courage, and care are the greatest powers of all. Marcus's life was no longer invisible. It was celebrated, honored, and appreciated, not for grandeur, but for the quiet, unwavering dedication that had always defined him. And as he walked the streets with Lily by his side, he knew that the future was filled with possibilities, hope, and the knowledge that true heroism comes from the heart.